Hey folks, it's Jared Manninen from the website TahoeTrailGuide.com. Today I'm going to provide you an overview of the cross-country ski gear that I use when I'm skiing in the backcountry, off-track, and off-trail. Right off the bat, I just want to make two quick notes. One, I do apologize for all the wind. I'm going to have to be a little bit creative today in making this video. The second is that this is not going to be a traditional gear review. I don't do gear reviews. I have no interest in providing gear reviews, but I do talk about gear, obviously, because cross-country skiing requires some gear. Mostly what I like to focus on are principles and things that we can change, which is what can we do with ourselves to become better skiers, not how much money can I throw at gear in order to make me a better skier. So that's just the philosophy that I embrace, is that the magic is in us, it's in you, it's in me, it's not in the gear. Another general principle that I adopt when I'm cross-country skiing in the backcountry is pretty much, if it's very deep snow, I'll use a wider ski. If it's a little bit of snow or it's very firm conditions, icy, hard pack, I'll use a skinnier ski. It's not much more than that. I buy skis based on my weight, so each manufacturer of every ski has a certain weight range that they have in mind for that length of ski. Stick with those recommendations and you'll be okay. I don't recommend really trying to push the boundary of those weight ranges, just because if you're not heavy enough, you can't compress the ski in order to get grip. Also, if you're too heavy for the ski, you're just going to be torpedoing the ski down, cutting through the snow the whole time. You're not going to get any glide. So it's a very simple thing. Just pay attention to the manufacturer's recommendations for weight range for the length of ski in which you're looking to buy. There's also a bunch of different grip zone systems. You can use scale pattern skis like I do. You can use full skins. You can use partial skins, of which these three accommodate, which basically fit within the grip zone. And you could get a waxable cross-country ski where you would use grip wax like traditional cross-country skiing or classic skiing. The reason I don't use skins, even the skins that I have for these, is that it just takes away from the flow of the experience of being outdoors. I don't want to have to monkey with the gear that I'm using while I'm out there if I don't have to. And you know, to be honest, the easy skin option, this little quick plug in, stick on within the grip zone option of using that partial skin, was kind of a selling point when I initially bought the Excursion 88s. I never use it though. The only time I've ever really used the easy skins on my skis are when I've traveled across a long flat surface of snow that's icy, and that's the only time. And for the most part, I don't do that anymore. Not that I don't travel across long flat strips of icy or snow, I do, but usually I'll just double pull the whole time, because with the easy skins plugging in there, there's a leading edge of the grip zone of those skins now that bumps into the snow. So now again, it breaks the flow. The gliding for me is just not nearly as fun. I definitely don't use them when it's really deep and fresh, dry snow. I tend to not find them useful at all in those conditions. Again, these grip zones are so aggressive on these backcountry, cross-country skis with the scale pattern that I just do not find a need for anything other than that. If you know how to manipulate the edges of your skis and to compress the ski 100% so that you're engaging the entire grip zone, you shouldn't need skins. Now, I also say this with the caveat that I don't really ski up or down any more than a 30-degree angle. That's as steep as I'm going to go. And if that's the case, if I end up in sections that are steeper, I'm going to herringbone or sidestep up or make longer traverses across the aspect of terrain in which I'm negotiating using the edges of my skis. So I don't follow traditional skin tracks that alpine touring skiers will use, because they're usually the wrong angle for cross-country skis with a scale patterned grip zone. To clarify, those skin tracks at a certain angle of terrain become too steep for me to effectively use the scale pattern grip zone of my cross-country skis, so I would then have to either sidestep on a traverse or herringbone straight up. In either of those cases, I would just destroy the skin track. So once I reach those steeper pitches, I just break my own trail and completely avoid the skin tracks. I know people who love the waxable backcountry cross-country skis that enable you to use grip wax as the grip zone, and for a consistently dry, cold, and relatively firm snowpack, I suspect that that's pretty amazing, but that's not what I experience here in the Sierra Nevada, where we can go from 11 degrees in the morning to 40 degrees in the afternoon. How do you wax for those conditions without having to stop every 5 minutes to change that wax? So I just tend to not like using anything other than scales because they're so versatile. Yes, you can hear the scales zipping down the hill when you're gliding downhill, and I know that irritates a lot of people because that equals friction, but at the same time, I've never found any of these skis to be slow going downhill unless the conditions just really create that. The little bit of friction that occurs from the scale pattern is negligible. It doesn't really affect my experience going downhill. So what do I have going on here? Well, it kind of looks like I have just about every off-track and backcountry cross-country ski made by Fisher. I'm not represented by them. This is not sponsored. Honestly, I used to work at an outfitters that sold Fisher cross-country ski gear, so I just kept buying skis while I worked there. But I do like the skis made by Fisher. What can I say? They're great skis. And I am missing a couple of widths. I don't have the Outback 68 or the Traverse 78, for example. As much as I'd love to own them, I probably won't because 4 is enough, and honestly 3 is enough. My usual Quiver for the longest time was the Spider 62s, so these are measured in millimeters at the tip or the shovel of the ski, not the waist, but up front. So Spider 62s are 62 millimeters across, Excursion 88s are 88 millimeters, and the S-bound 112s are 112 millimeters wide at the tip. So for the most part, these 3 sets of skis do me just fine. Really deep snow, I use these. Really firm and hard pack snow, especially in the spring or at the beginning of the season, I'll use these. And if it's kind of a meh winter where we don't really have any more than a few inches of fresh snow at any given time, I'll use my Excursion 88s. I still want to really use my S-bound 98s. I just haven't. And part of that reason of having multiple skis is I can spread load the wear and tear that any one ski accumulates over the course of a season, so that in theory I kind of extend them longer. Or it feels like when I do pull this one out next year, for example, I got a brand new set of skis because I forget what it feels like to run those. But realistically, all the different skis that I have, if I'm using them in the appropriate environment, it's all the same experience to me for the most part because I'm the same. My skills transfer to either type of ski or any kind of condition. I can ski well in firm conditions on skinny skis. I can ski well in deep conditions on wide skis, and it's an enjoyable experience. I'm not at the mercy of what are these skis doing because I don't know how to. My baseline is good diagonal striding technique and a general understanding of how to downhill on light touring gear. I'm still working on that. I come from the cross-country part of the cross-country downhill. I don't come from the downhill part. I've never been an alpine skier, so I don't have that experience in me. I come from the diagonal stride experience. So that's where I put most of my emphasis on, because most of the time in the backcountry, you're going to spend like 75 to 95% of your time approaching a hill if what you're looking for is downhill experience. Most of the time it's flat or uphill. So if you don't know how to diagonal stride, for example, and know how to use these skis, your skiing experience is going to be far less enjoyable because you're going to be doing the shuffle. You're going to be doing the walk. And I don't fault anyone for not putting in the number of hours or miles that I do. It's what I love to do. I want to get better at it. This is my thing in the winter. But these skis are designed to glide on the flats, uphill and downhill. So technique will always outweigh gear. Again, gear does have its limitations, but if you know technique, you can make that gear do some amazing things. I have friends who can go off-piste at the Groom Cross Country Ski Area with either their classics or their skate gear and rip parallel turns all the way down the hillside off trail. And it's amazing to watch them do that because they're on 44 millimeter wide skis and they're straight as an arrow. At the same time, I also know really good classic diagonal striders that once they put wide skis on and they go off trail, we gravitate toward the shuffle or the walking experience. And I look back at them, I was like, you know, we could still diagonal stride. We can cover this meadow in a short order and have a good time because we can glide the whole way. So my emphasis when it comes to cross-country skiing is knowing technique. Again, invest in taking lessons, going to clinics, more than gear. Get yourself a good set of skis or 2 or 3, but really focus on learning technique because that's how you're going to maximize your experience on the skis. So other than matter of convenience that I happen to own Fisher skis, what is it that I like about these particular sets of skis? I like Fisher skis because they tend to feel a little bit stiffer to me than some of the other backcountry, cross-country skis that I've used before, and that stiffer ski enables me to diagonal stride better. It also requires more effort to compress the ski flat, which is transferring all of your body weight onto one ski at a time. So again, the shuffle is splitting your weight, exhausting yourself, doing the splits the whole way down, sometimes getting grip, most of the time not getting great grip. But when you're diagonal striding and you're compressing the ski flat, engaging the entire grip zone flat to the snow, your best possibility is right there for you to push off effectively in order to glide onto the next ski. Most off-track or backcountry, cross-country skis will feature a metal edge. But that metal edge isn't necessarily the salvation that many people are looking for. Yes, it'll enable you to gain more purchase and bite into hard-packed and icy snow more effectively than without the metal edge. However, those metal edges aren't going to turn you into some super slalom, alpine, or telemark skier. The bottom line is that cross-country skis, regardless of whether or not they're backcountry or on-track skis, do not have a huge side cut to them. They also have that camber that keeps the grip zone off the snow, so you have to fight against that to flatten the skis in order to turn more effectively on the downhills with them. So the metal edges are just one part of that equation. What I find to be more beneficial about having metal edges on backcountry, cross-country skis is that they add durability and stiffness to them. So you don't have to worry as much about snapping your ski in half or gouging the heck out of the sides of them if you do happen to run into some sort of natural debris such as a rock or a root or a fallen tree, for example. As far as what type of binding system that I prefer to use, honestly, I just like the binding that's going to be commensurate with the width of the waist of the ski. So, for example, this is just a very simple 3-pin binding, and it fits, relatively naturally on this wider set of cross-country skis. So the waist on these are 78 millimeters wide. So this is 78 millimeters wide. A standard duckbill of a 3-pin boot is going to be about 75 millimeters wide. So we're almost the entire width of the ski in this particular option. With this S-Bound 98, I have a 69 millimeter wide waist, which almost feels a little bit too narrow for this wide of a binding. At the same time, it's not that big a deal. Because I only use these wider backcountry skis with these bigger 3-pin bindings in deeper snow, I'm not worried about bottoming out as I'm putting the ski on edge. On these 88s, I have the Manninen BC manual binding or the Magnum binding, which requires you to open up by hand. I love this setup, and you can see it doesn't hang over at all. It's a great little setup for this particular set of skis. And on these 62 millimeter skis here, I just use standard N&N binding, and it's fine. It's a lightweight binding for a lightweight ski. And like I said, I typically use those when it's very firm conditioned snow, so I don't need to worry about having to apply a whole bunch of pressure to the binding because there's not much snow that I'm trying to power through or anything like that. So an N&N binding on those little Spyder 62 millimeter skis are just fine. Another little technical feature of the Fisher skis that I'd like to point out is that they do incorporate a center groove down the entire length of the ski. The center groove essentially forces snow up into it to help you track your skis straighter. That also means there's going to be a little bit more resistance to turning the skis when you're going downhill. I really haven't found it to be, critical or really causing me to not be able to turn the ski. But it is one concept or one technical aspect of Fisher's that's slightly different than some of the other manufacturers. But again, that also contributes to better diagonal stride on the flat and going uphill because you have the center groove allowing you or helping you track the skis straighter. When you're not in tracks like you would find at a groomed cross-country ski area and you have to keep your skis going straight through your own body movement, having every little bit to help you go straighter is a plus in my book. So that's essentially my quiver of backcountry cross-country skis. I always post in all of my videos the type of skis, bindings, and boots that I'm using in that particular video or that particular clip that I'm using, so as to avoid having to answer that question in the comments. Not that I don't like answering that question, but it is one of those ones that for me feels like a dead end most of the time because what I'm running in the snow conditions of the day may or may not have any relevance on what you're trying to accomplish. So it's nice to know what skis that I'm using, but again, all of my experience in the backcountry, off track and off trail, is mostly because my technique enables me to do that. It's not because the ski's making it so that I can just ski that much easier. Again, a skinny ski in deep snow would be really challenging, and using a really wide ski on icy terrain is just not enjoyable at all. But if you get a width of ski that's commensurate with the amount of fresh snow that's on the ground, that pretty much kind of levels it out. And as the snow gets deeper and as I go wider, it's again that very similar, almost near identical experience as going to something skinnier and on firmer snowpack. Okay folks, that's about all I got. It's all food for thought. We should be challenging ourselves to become better skiers. Every time I go out, I'm working on something. I'm having fun, but I'm training. It's incredible the learning resources that I have at my disposal, and I've kind of maximized the experience. And what I tried to do is take that education and go into the backcountry to try and reinvigorate this idea that classic cross-country skiing, diagonal striding, is super fun and super cool. And again, if our approach to whatever mountain or hill that we're going to go downhilling on is going to take up 3/4 of our time, let's have a good time doing that, rather than just essentially snowshoeing to that hill. Let's ski to that hill. Let's glide there if we can. So I will always recommend education and investing in oneself's skills so that you can transfer those skills to multiple scenarios, multiple sets of skis. That's worth investing way more than owning a ton of different pieces of gear that essentially get stuck in your closet for seasons at a time. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you have questions or feedback, post it in the comments section below. Check out TahoeTrailGuide.com. I have a bunch of articles with additional information revolving around cross-country skiing, particularly backcountry cross-country skiing, so check that out. I also have a Patreon, PayPal, and Venmo option if you want to contribute financially to Tahoe Trail Guide and this YouTube. And lastly, I just want to thank again all of my Patreon subscribers and those individuals who have contributed via PayPal or Venmo to Tahoe Trail Guide and this YouTube channel. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate all the support that you guys provide. It really keeps me motivated to make these videos and write the articles that I do. So thank you so much. All right, folks, take care. Have a great rest of your season.